Welcome to QX Church. I'm Pastor Scott Conway. You find us online at qxchurch.org. This is the third lesson in the submission series with a particular emphasis on self-submission. Today in particular, we are talking about integrity through self-submission. Now, I will tell you going in, this has been an enormously powerful lesson for me. Just preparing this lesson, thinking through this lesson, and investing myself rather deeply in prayer and pondering and consideration of my own life and how I live my life, how I settle into myself, and how internally consistent I am with everything in me, and how that is a reflection of my self-submission, both where I do it exceptionally well and where I need a little bit of improvement. And in a couple of areas where, frankly, I need a lot of improvement. Show up. Be here now as your best you. So when I talk about show up, I mean two things. Be here now. That's the fundamental. Be present in the moment. But to really show up, it's to be here now as your best you. Show up is about the moment. Show up is about being right here, being right now, with what the moment means. Now, every once in a while, I get a question that goes something like this, and I've had two of these in the last year that dealt with exactly the same thing. It was a wedding. And someone wanted to know, well, how do we show up at the wedding when we're in the middle of this relationship mess and basically we're getting divorced? And for that particular one, essentially I told him, show up. Be here now. When you go to your daughter's wedding, it's not about you. It's not about the two of you. It's not about your marriage. It's about your daughter's wedding. Show up and let your daughter's wedding be about your daughter's wedding. And another one, exactly the same thing. How do I go to my girlfriend's wedding when I just broke up with my boyfriend of however many years it was? And it was the same advice. Be here now. Show up as your best you. Don't show up as the girl who just broke up with a boyfriend. Show up as the girlfriend of your friend. Let your friend's wedding be about your friend's wedding. Let your friend's wedding be about your friend getting married. It's not about you. It's not about your breakup. It's about her and her becoming a wife. And just let it be about that. And so part of showing up is be here now as your best you. So when it's their daughter getting married, don't show up as a husband and wife having problems. Show up as a mother and father who love their daughter. Don't show up as the woman who just lost a long-time relationship. Show up as the friend. Be your best you. Centered on being your best you for this moment, in this moment. Now, that might not be who you feel you are globally, but that's how you show up. Who is your best you right here, right now, for this moment, for these people? Be your best you with optimal integrity. Be your best you with optimal integrity. Now, this isn't perfect integrity, because I will tell you, you will never achieve perfect integrity. That while you walk in your human flesh, while you walk in your humanity, while you walk in your fallen state, no matter how saintly you are, you will never be perfect. There was one perfect person, and boy, did he get criticized. He got criticized, he got attacked, he got arrested, he got crucified. And we won't be that good. And sometimes we don't handle criticism very well. And if we understand that Jesus Christ himself was criticized, Jesus Christ himself was attacked, Jesus Christ himself was undermined, Jesus Christ himself was openly challenged in front of the crowds, Jesus Christ himself was arrested, accused, condemned for something he was not guilty of, scourged, badly tortured, and crucified as a completely innocent man. Why in the world would we think we're going to get away with even being imperfect, if even perfect is no defense? But we do show up with optimal integrity, whatever integrity we can muster, whatever integrity our current level of maturity allows, whatever integrity our current level of willpower allows, and in particular, whatever level of integrity our self-submission manifests in our lives. Integrity means being integrated. It means having things be as they appear. And one of the great ways that they appear is we present ourselves in a certain way. We say things. We express ideas. And very much of what other people ever see or know about us is that which we put out in front of them on purpose. And so integrity means we've created this image. The reality behind the image ought to match the image. Maybe not perfectly, but no one should be surprised. No one should see a concrete mismatch. If they are surprised because of assumptions they made, not because of a presentation you made. So kindergarten integrity. Match what you say and what you do. So we call this kindergarten integrity because can a small child match what they say and what they do? If a small child tells their parents, yeah, I brush my teeth, is a small child capable of understanding that if you're going to tell your parents you brush your teeth, you should have already brushed your teeth? Can a small child understand if you tell your parents, okay, I'll go brush my teeth now? Can a small child understand if you just told your parents you're going to go brush your teeth, that now you go brush your teeth? So we call that kindergarten integrity. Because even a kindergartner can get this. Even a kindergartner can understand, match up what you say with what you do, match up the reality with what you say, which gives us a basic definition of kindergarten level integrity. When there is a reality, match your words to reality. So when there is a reality, when something is already actually true, match your words to what is already true. So for the kid, did you brush your teeth or did you not brush your teeth? Whatever it is you tell your parents should match that reality. Either you did or you didn't. If there's, did you brush your teeth? You say, yes, I brushed my teeth. The teeth should already be brushed. If they ask if you brushed your teeth and you have not yet brushed your teeth, you tell them, no, I haven't brushed my teeth. So there is a reality. You just match your words to the reality. And then when you've said words, match reality to your words. So that is when you say you're going to do something, you do that thing you actually said. Now the rule on rules applies to this. Now what the rule on rules is, the rule on rules says the rule is the rule unless there is a good reason to do otherwise. Because frankly, there are some times we don't want to match our words to reality and we don't want to match reality to our words. In particular, that latter one. Because if I'm mad and I get in my rage and I'm just all caught up and I scream at you, I'm going to kill you. And ugh, I wish I hadn't said that. Now I guess I have to commit murder. No, I would say the rule on rules applies to that. And there's a good reason to do otherwise. In fact, I would greatly prefer you did not keep your word on that one. Because there are some things that sometimes we say that really, frankly, we really ought not to do. And if in the middle of rage someone screams, "I'm going to kill you," I would really, really rather you didn't follow through on those words. And so that's an obvious extreme example of the rule on rules. But you have to determine for yourself on a case-by-case basis how the principle of "unless there is a good reason to do otherwise" applies. Because it depends upon how important it is to do the thing that you said. It depends upon the spirit with which you said it. And it depends upon whether that's something that really ought to be done or ought never to be done. Because sometimes we say something in a moment and we haven't really thought it through. So whether we're talking about matching words to our reality or matching reality to our words, one of the keys there is to learn to be careful with our words. Learn to be careful with our words. How we phrase things, how we put things, what we openly declare to other people, what we openly declare publicly. Now, my mother is a great and fantastic woman, and every time I use her as an example, it's almost always a positive example. I have very, very few negative examples involving my mother. She was a great, great mom. One of her negative examples, though, is when she would get in a fight with her husband, my dad. One of the things she would frequently do is, "That's it, I want a divorce." And I can't even tell you how many times I heard those words. It was just like one of those things, Mom gets mad enough, somewhere in this mix I'm going to hear those words. And my father told me that, first off, he never liked hearing it. That always bothered him. Because in reality, whenever you say words like that, you are openly declaring, "This issue to me is bigger than our relationship. This issue to me is bigger than our marital status. This issue to me is bigger to me than you are." And my dad told me there was one particular day she uttered those words, and he said, "Something inside me broke. Something inside me just internally shrugged and said, okay." And from that moment on, we were divorced. The rest of it was just a legal formality. And so sometimes what we have to watch out for when we say words, sometimes the execution on those words depends on someone else. And when it does, we could end up being true to our words that we didn't mean to be true to. Or someone could take the words differently on one particular occasion where later on we may regret having said that. So kindergarten integrity, match what you say and what you do. That means be careful about what you say and then do what you say. Be careful about how you express the reality as it is real now so that your words match the reality. In particular, something that me and a business partner are going through right now is other people expressing words that mischaracterize reality. Expressing their guesses as though it is fact, and then being consistently wrong on their guesses. So you be careful of your words. You be careful of the way you express things. Matthew 5:37. Let your communication be yes, yes, or no, no. For more than this is evil. Or perhaps to unpack that in more detail, for more than this is not optimally good. If you mean yes, say yes. If you mean no, say no. Be impeccable with your word. If you say yes, just have your yes be a yes. If you say no, just have your no be a no. If you say no, it means no. If you say yes, it means yes. If you want to say yes but must say no, include a yes in your no. And the friend I consistently use as an example of this, I have a friend of mine who is really, really good. If I invite her out and she can't go out, but she would like to go out sometimes, she just can't go out on the particular day I'm inviting her, she will specifically include in her no, well, I'm not available on that Thursday, but could we maybe do something on the weekend? And she's specifically including a yes so that it's clear my answer would be a yes if I could give you a yes. But I can't give you a yes to that particular offer, but I would like there to be a yes somewhere in here. But if you do not want it to be a yes, say no. Don't let your yes be a no. Don't let your no be a yes. Now that's kindergarten integrity. Match what you say and what you do. And it's kindergarten integrity because you can teach this to a 5-year-old. It's kindergarten integrity because a 5-year-old child, you could be 4 or 5 years old. I was 4 when I started kindergarten. I could know the basic thing of if you tell your mom that you did something, it better already be done. If you tell your mom you're about to do something, you better really be about to do it. And that you don't have your word and reality mismatch. Then we get to advanced integrity. Advanced integrity is you match your will, mind, and emotions. So you have will over mind over emotions. If we build it up from the bottom, advanced integrity means you have your word and your deed, and those already match. Because if you haven't achieved kindergarten level integrity, it's really hard to do a whole lot at the higher levels on that exact same issue. But if you've got the word and the deed already matching up, so what you say and what you do are already matching, the next level is good. Now do it with the proper attitude. So say, for instance, if I'm married, and let us suppose I really don't much care for clothes shopping. And that in particular, I have a woman who has a great sense of style, and she's a great bargain hunter, and that for her, going out clothes shopping is a little bit of an adventure. It's like it's a treasure hunt. And that she enjoys like looking for the great outfit, and because she loves me, and part of her desire is to bring beauty into my world, and she knows that she's central in my world, that she wants my opinion. And so I agree to go with her. But if I'm going with her, and I have a bad attitude about it, is that really what she wanted? Just my mere physical presence being a grump the whole time? Of course not. And so part of advanced integrity is I said I would, so I do, and then I do so with the proper attitude. That I show up as a man who loves his wife. I show up as a man who is truly being there with his wife, for his wife. I take joy in the process. I take joy in her joy. I give her my honest opinion about things. I let her know what I think will look beautiful. I let her know what I would love to see her wearing when we go out to dinner or go to the wedding or go to whatever it is we're shopping for. And I enjoy it, and I enjoy her. That's showing up with a proper attitude. That's a higher level of integrity. That I don't just do what I say I would do, I do what I say I would do with the attitude with which I ought to be doing such things. Going back to the earlier example, if my wife and I are having serious marital problems and there's a high probability we're not going to get through this and we are going to end up divorced, but our adult daughter is getting married, part of advanced integrity is not only do we show up because we said we show up with the attitude. We show up with that emotional state focused on this is about our daughter. This is about her getting married. This is her wedding. Our marital issues have no place in her wedding. And so we don't bring them in. Because we will practice advanced integrity. We will show up in love with our daughter, even if we are way out of love with one another. Advanced integrity includes mind. Advanced integrity including mind means that we intentionally think the thoughts. We intentionally explore the information. We learn what we need to learn. And then here's a key one. We bring our creativity to that which we declared. We put our mental energy there. So we place the emotional burden in line with our words. We place our mental burden in line with our words. So we spend mental time focused on how do I execute on this. We spend mental time in being creative. And in particular, when it comes to things like integrity in a relationship, since I've been using the married couples example a lot, if one of your goals is to get married if you're engaged or to be married, think about, well, what does that mean? And bring your creativity to that. So if I want my wife to know that I love her, let me be creative in how I express how much I love her. And make that a habit. One of my favorite examples, I talked about this actually at a seminar last year in December, talking about kind of my iconic things. And one of my iconic things with a lady love, a potential wife, or certainly if I am married, is the slow dance that ends in a slow kiss. And for those of you who have seen Avengers Endgame, that was like, like, whoa, final win. The slow dance that ends in a slow kiss. And some of that comes from bringing my romantic creativity in integrity with my love. Because if I say I love you, if I have the attitude of love, I have the feelings of love, so I've got integrity between my attitude, my emotions, and my words, and my actions. As I'm seeking to develop my actions, I bring my mental creativity to bear on how do I do this? What kind of romantic things can we do? And then matching your will, which means now your choices are in line with your thinking, or in line with your emotions, or in line with your words, that are in line with your deeds. So that's advanced integrity. Now, you can see how challenging that is. You can see why that's advanced. You can see why that might be a little hard to teach to a 5-year-old. But could a 5-year-old do at least some of that? Even a 5-year-old could do some of that. If I say go clean your room and you say, okay, I'll go clean my room, at least clean your room with a good attitude. At least go figure out some of how to clean your room. At least decide that you're going to do that which you agreed to do. And let it be a real decision. Then you have master level integrity. So advanced integrity is that of the soul. You bring your emotions in line, your mind in line, your will in line. So you're making actual choices. And you're bringing your mental capability and you're bringing your emotions and attitude all to bear in harmony, so that when you make your choices, you've thought it through, you have the proper attitude, and then you speak. Master level integrity is integrity in the spirit. This is religion, principles, and others. You match your religion, principles, and others to your will, mind, and emotions that matches up with what you say and what you do. And that means the way you treat others, the way you interact with others, and here gets to be the more challenging part, the way you think about others, even if you never say it to them. Think about your reflexive emotional reactions. That you seek to bring some of these into harmony so that you are integrated from others to your choices, to your thinking, to your attitude and emotions, to your words and your deeds. Going back to all of the examples about romance. How am I interacting with this particular lady? So if I want to do something nice for my mother, obviously not a romantic type relationship, but it applies equally to her husband. If I want to buy my mother flowers, because I want to add beauty to her world, idiosyncratically, my mother doesn't like roses. Most women I know like roses. My mother's one of those handful of women I know that doesn't like roses. She would like the gesture if I got her roses. Well, more specifically, she would like the gesture if a friend got her roses. But if I get her roses, if her husband gets her roses, that might actually be a problem. because she likes chrysanthemums. She doesn't like roses, and she knows that we either know or we ought to remember that. And so as part of master level integrity with my mother, if I'm going to get my mother flowers in integrity with who I know she is and her particular preferences, I would buy her chrysanthemums, I wouldn't buy her roses. And that's just part of honoring and respecting her with the platinum rule. But even at a basic level of others, respecting the innate equality of all human beings. Respecting the fact that I don't intrinsically have more human value than you do. We all have the same intrinsic value. And whether I have authority over you or you have authority over me or we just have influence with each other, where we are is situational, role by role, goal by goal. So if I'm an instructor in the dojo floor, well then it's my job to be in the lead. And if I'm going to practice master level integrity, just at that level, I show up as the instructor. If I'm at the student side, I show up as the student. I have another person that I'm interacting with and that I need to show up at a spiritual level, honoring that relationship, honoring the relative roles, honoring the intrinsic human value of one to another. Matching principles as part of your integrity. Now note, when we're getting to these spiritual levels, it means that the soul is subject to the spirit. What are your actual principles? Now, in particular, this one gets to be key. If I espouse the principle with my words, the words being all the way down to the action level, those better be the principles I actually live by at the principle level. Taking it one step higher of religion. That which I declare to be revelation. I say I believe this. The principles by which I live my life ought not ever conflict with this I say I believe is true. Especially if I'm going so far as to say I believe this to be a revelation from God Himself. Because that means if I walk in disobedience with that, I'm telling God to His face, I believe you said A, I'm doing B anyway. And if I say I believe God exists, and I'm saying I believe this is His word, and I'm saying I believe this is what His word means, and I'm saying this is how His word ought to apply to other people and why, that same why had better be walked out in my own life by my own principles. This is just at an integrity level. Those principles which I espouse ought to be the principles I live by. Now, by the way, here's actually a scary thing. We actually really do live by our principles. Always. The most evil person in the world lives by their principles. Because it governs how we think. It governs how we look at other people. It governs whether and how we value other people. It governs our choices. It governs our thinking. It governs our emotions. It governs our actions. So there's a reality there. But a lot of times we will espouse principles that may or may not be the way we live. We espouse theology that may or may not be the way that we live. And then finally you get up to the level of God. Now there's Hanshi level integrity. Now sometimes I'll teach how do I want to phrase this? A system of masculinity that's based on archetypes. And there's 6 archetypes. Now the 6 archetypes are loosely based upon martial arts master's ranks. Now there's one Koibidoshi, that's not a martial arts title, but it's fundamental. Koibidoshi is, you can think of as a knight of love. That you show up with a strong, powerful love. There's the Renshi, which is a chaos knight, someone who's comfortable in chaos, that shows up into chaos with strength and honor, and they're the problem solver. There's the Kyoshi. The Kyoshi is like the philosopher knight, and that's someone who shows up with strength and honor in principles and philosophy. And then there's the Shihan, and the Shihan is the man of action, and that's someone who shows up as a master of action. They're the doers. They get stuff done. They do all the things. And there's a kind of another one, I'm skipping past Hanshi for the moment, the Sokeshi, which is based on the position of Soke, and they're the creator. They're the maker. They're the one that tends the systems. They tend created and made things. And in this, there's this title of Hanshi. In my martial art, the Hanshi is the title for the 10th degree black belt. And that would most commonly be a 52-year path. If you walked it at proper time and grades and you did everything at the full time and grade and you got done at the time and grade, in 52 years you could achieve the rank of Hanshi. In my case, I will have completed the 52-year path in 54 years. But if I achieve the rank of Hanshi, Hanshi means a master of being. Hanshi is about who you are. And in martial arts, if you think about this as a progression that takes 52 years to achieve, you can see that the Hanshi standard is a really, really high standard of mastery. And as an archetype, though, Hanshi is pursuit of being. It's just being the person that naturally does the things. It's being the person that has, espouses, and lives out this philosophy. It's about being the person who comes into chaotic situations with that sense of being that just autopilots to solving problems. It's being that person that just loves people. So that level of integrity, Hanshi level of integrity, is matching the heart. The heart in our model is your pre-conscious, subconscious, and deep dark. And Hanshi level integrity means that there is harmony, not just between body, soul, and spirit, but there is harmony from your pre-conscious, that is the stuff that you put in there for recall later, the stuff you can instantly pull up and think about anytime you want. Your subconscious, which is all of the stuff that's kind of buried a little deeper, and to whatever extent you can, the deep dark. The deep dark is the stuff down in the subconscious, so far down, you may never even know what it is. And that's just integrity. And taking this concept of integrity, let's look at part of how we get there. Self-submission. I submit my words to reality. I submit my reality to my words. Kindergarten self-submission is you keep your commitments to yourself. I said it, I do it. I did it, I said it. I match these. Back to the rule of rules, of course, unless there's a good reason to do otherwise. I don't want people following through on idle threats. It's much better to hone the skill of never making idle threats, because you never know when someone's going to take something seriously. And by the way, related to that, someone had a relationship ending thing that they said recently. In this post-Me Too era, where it is getting to be reflexive that any accusation, in particular a woman makes, is taken at face value, unless and until proven otherwise, and sometimes not even then, that a woman making an accusation of a heinous sex crime, even in the middle of her fury, is roughly on par with the "I'm going to kill you," and someone taking it seriously. And there was a woman who got really, really mad, and she accused the man she was semi-involved with of a heinous sex crime. And then later on, she said, "Yeah, I know, I didn't mean it. I never should have said that. I'm sorry, I was just mad. I mean, you know it's not true. I know it's not true. I was just mad." Well, here's part of the problem. So what if they get more deeply romantically involved, and she does it again? What if she does it in public? What if she gets mad long enough that she calls the police? And she accuses him to the police because she is that mad that long. What if she just yells it loud enough that neighbors hear? And a neighbor calls the police. What happens in this day and age? Chances are he's going to jail. Now, if in the next day or two they determine that, okay, she was just mad, she says she was just mad, she says nothing happened, we can actually prove nothing happened, but we have nothing to indicate that something did happen. Now he has an arrest record. Now, at any future time in the future, anything happens, they go, oh, we've arrested him for something like that before. Is that going to go well for him, or is that going to go badly for him? And she has to be forgiven, and she's been forgiven but not restored, because now we know, oh, you're the type of person that if you get mad enough, you'll throw out these kind of accusations. And now when you're calm, you'll take it back. But that means if you get angry long enough, even just an hour, I could end up in jail. And if you do that to me 2 or 3 times, I could end up in jail for a long time. I could end up in prison. And on one line uttered in one time of fury, she lost a relationship, which frankly was a wise move on his part. So kindergarten submission, you keep your commitments to yourself. The rule on rules applies. So if you're in the middle of fury and you say, I'm going to call the police and tell them you did this and this and that. Okay, if the this and that isn't true, don't follow through on that one. Don't say like, well, I guess as a matter of personal integrity, I have to follow through on this. Rule on rule applies. Unless there's a good reason to do otherwise, and in a situation like that, there's definitely a good reason to do otherwise. And some otherwises, still result in the end of relationships. So we have to be careful. It could be the end of an employment relationship. It could be the end of a romantic relationship, the end of a friendship. Sometimes in one line, if it's a really, really bad line. So kindergarten self-submission, you keep your commitments to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, rule on rules, but if you say you're going to do something, you do it. You keep your commitments to yourself. Now, I'm calling it kindergarten self-submission. But that's just as a reflection of kindergarten integrity. Because the kindergartner can understand the integrity thing. In reflection to kindergarten self-submission of keeping your commitments to yourself, for most people, this is hard. So it's only labeled kindergarten in the sense that it's easy to understand. But it's hard to do. It's so hard that it's uncommon, even rare. In fact, sometimes it is so rare. There is a position I've been asked to take a look at, and the ultimate thing that made them want to talk to me was someone told them, Scott Conway is a man who keeps his commitment to himself. And the person said, wait, well, what? What do you mean? And they explained that, if he just decides he's going to do something, and he does what he decided to do because he decided to do it, even if he didn't tell anyone but himself. And the former director went, really? Okay, we need to talk to this guy. Now, to me, it would seem pretty fundamental that you keep your commitments to yourself. And, I know some people don't and some people do, but apparently it's rare enough that that became like the key reason someone wanted to talk to me about a position directing an organization. Part of which would be because I wouldn't answer to anybody. So that means I have to keep my commitments to myself because I'm going to be the one in charge. And I'm not going to have a boss looking over my shoulder telling me what to do and checking in on me to make sure I did it. They're going to know whether or not I did what I was supposed to do by whether everything falls apart or not. Which is part of why they want me in there, is because things have fallen apart. And there are other people not keeping their commitments to themselves, not keeping their commitments to the organization, not keeping their commitments to do what was theirs to do. Precisely because no one's looking over their shoulder. So kindergarten self-submission is hard. It's kindergarten only in the sense it's easy to understand. It's hard to do. But where you start is with kindergarten self-submission. Keep your promises to yourself and others. Don't just keep your promises to other people. Keep your promises to yourself. If you tell yourself, this is my decision, then that's your decision unless there's a good reason to change your decision. Notably, there's new information you did not know about when you made the decision you made. And then, even then, you reflect on, did I make the decision prematurely? Because I'll do things like I call default decisions. And this is the decision I'm making based upon what I know now. So we're going to sort that out from here and now. And as I get more information, I'm going to keep revisiting that decision until I'm ready to make a final decision. And all you're doing here is when you say yes to yourself, it's a yes. When you say no to yourself, it's a no. When what you say to yourself is what you do. The way you characterize a thing to yourself is based upon the reality of what you did. You have a self-submitted relationship with yourself that harmonizes what you say and what you do. Well, advanced self-submission is you lay down your suke. Now this is based on John 15:13. Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. This is Jesus Christ himself. And to break out kind of some of what that means is, greater agape has no one than this. Greater unconditional love has no one than this. Greater love character has no one than this. That he lay down his suke for that which he phileos, his suke, his psyche, for that which he phileos, for that which he has a relationship with. But the suke, self to self, it's a healthy agape self-love. Agape is character-driven love. 1 Corinthians 13:4-8, if you want to kind of take a quick look at what that means. And a healthy agape self-love means you lay down your will, your mind, and your emotions to yourself. At your emotion and attitude level. What emotion serves your highest and best self? What attitude serves your highest and best self? And diving into the emotion, if you understand the language of emotions, you know things like anger means broken rule. And so I lay down my anger to my highest and best self. That particularly means I look at two things. What are my rules? And I will change my rules as necessary to live out as my highest and best self. And that when I am angry, I will respond to my anger in a healthy way. Fear. Something's coming, I'm not ready. That I will look at the things I put myself in the way of in my life. I will look at my readiness. Related that I will look at my courage. Courage is I feel fear, I'm going anyway. And I will choose to align self with self in self-submission, my readiness, my courageous choices, and I will decide. Mind and learning. I will lay down my mind, I will lay down my learning, I will lay down my thinking, I will lay down my creativity to my highest and best self. And the will and the choices. I will exercise willpower. Willpower is I will stick to what is right no matter what I feel. I will lay down my will to my highest and best self. I will make my choices. I will decide, killing off things I don't decide to. I will make decisions, cutting off other alternatives. In service to my highest and best self. In fact, before I move on to master self-submission, here's an interesting thing. There's been studies that basically boil down to this. When you have truly chosen, consistently what happens is you like the choice that you made even more. But it depends upon it actually being a decision. That you cut off the alternatives. This is the choice. Boom. The other alternatives are gone. This is what I have decided. The other alternatives are killed off. Because here was the study. It was kind of interesting. Is that they had these 6 posters, and they just had people rank them from 1 to 6 as to which ones they liked. And then they would tell, okay, well, we have some inventory because we're almost done with the study, and so then we can give away some of these. So you can have either one of these two. And they would offer them their choice number 3 and their choice number 4. And people, of course, would choose their choice number 3 over the choice number 4 because they just got done saying they like that one better than the other one. And then they do a follow-up. And in the follow-up, some weeks later, they'd have to re-rank them. Well, what consistently happens is the one they chose, the number 3, rises up in desirability. Now the number 3 choice from before is now the number 2 choice on average. Some people, it jumps up to number 1 because that's the one they picked. And that whole internal thing that says, that was my choice, now makes that more valuable because now it's mine. I chose that. I decided on that. I had a choice between 3 and 4, and I picked mine. And then here gets to be the other interesting part. What was number 4, because they chose against that one, tends to drop to, on average, number 5, occasionally number 6, because they specifically chose against that one. Isn't that interesting that when you really choose, that which you choose becomes more valuable to you? You take ownership of it. And that which you choose against becomes less valuable to you. Now here gets to be an interesting thing. When they would instead approach the exact same exercise with, are you sure? Are you really sure? Okay, well, just so you know, we have plenty of both of them, so if you change your mind, we can switch that out. And then they would do a follow-up. And they found that the number 3 and the number 4 hadn't moved. Now here is the most interesting thing, is they would deal with people who have a particular type of amnesia that they can't remember things kind of in this medium term. That if you give them 10 to 30 minutes, they don't even remember that that previous thing even happened. Even for people who don't remember participating in that exercise, even the people who don't remember that they had a choice and that they made a choice, they don't remember that they own one of these things now. When they do the study brand new, because they literally don't remember, so it's for the first time in this person's recollection, the number 3 still moved up to number 2. The number 4 still moved down to number 5. There is something so intrinsic in it that it doesn't have to do with your conscious recollection. You could totally forget, and there's a shift in the heart. Is that interesting? And so when you really choose this person, when you commit, and you literally cut off all other options, that person should rise up in your esteem. The hypothetical thing that a lot of men have is because men have this kind of intrinsic thing that says, yeah, I want to be desired by many attractive women. I want to have access to many attractive women. And that commitment for a lot of men is hard because they're abandoning this fantasy. And really, honestly, it's a fantasy because very few men actually live life at that level. But there's this kind of background fantasy that most men have that when they truly commit, that is a big deal for the average man. But if he truly commits, the love for this woman he has chosen rises. His esteem for her rises. That if he has truly chosen her, what I teach is the upgrade principle, which is sometimes so difficult and revolutionary even in some people's thinking because it seems to be much more natural in modern society for what we call lawful target, where you treat the person you've supposedly chosen worse than you treat other people. That when you've actually truly chosen, the upgrade principle becomes a natural byproduct of the choosing. Isn't that interesting? And that's one of the ways you can look at your choices. Master level self-submission. Divide between spirit and soul and make right our spirit. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing as far as the division between soul and spirit, of both joints and marrow, and able to judge the thoughts and intentions of the heart. That's Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12. Psalm 51:10, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Renew a right spirit within me. That means others about others. Principles about principles. Religion about religion. God about God. It means that there's a magnitude of reality to the spirit, that you have righted your spirit. It is a sad fact of too much of reality. It's not universal, but it's common. That people talk about others, but it's not really about others. It's about justification for self. People will state principles that might be lofty sounding principles, but they only really believe them in one direction. That they have a different set of rules of what comes to them than the set of rules of what comes from them. But they'll state lofty sounding principles. And then religion about religion. For some people, religion is about, oh, now I get to tell other people what to do and I get to blame God for me being a judgmental jerk. So it's not me, it's God. If you don't like it, take it up with God. And as I grew up, one of the main Christian influences in my life was a man just like that. And that was one of my number one barriers to coming to Christ, was that man. Because to whatever extent he exemplified what God was like, I wanted nothing to do with that God. And the more I learned that, oh, that's not what God is like, that's what he is like, and he's hiding behind God to justify his own judgmentalism. Oh, well then I'm going to just set him aside. If I set him aside, Jesus Christ looks like a really good deal. And God being about God. When these things are true, when these things are clean, when these things are right, when these things are free of sin, when they hit the mark, they truly govern. So for me, a fundamental about God is that God is a loving God. And I interpret all of Scripture through that lens. And I believe the words are the words, and the words are the right words. But I also say that the Bible is the Word of God. Our interpretation of the Bible is not the Word of God. And as a matter of God being my Father, I believe that it falls to me for me to live a better elevated life, so that if I can live such an elevated life and someone asks, so why are you the way you are? It's because God is love. I learned to love from God. And God loves everybody. So, well, what about these other Christians or this and that? It's like, that's the way they interpret Scripture. It's not the way I interpret Scripture. I look at a loving God. Is there sin? Yes, of course there's sin. But God looks at us with love like a father with a misbehaving child. He doesn't love the child any less. He hopes to help the child correct their behavior, grow up and be more mature. But he doesn't hate his own child because his child makes mistakes and sometimes does stupid things. Like my mother used to say, Scotty, why would a smart kid like you do such a stupid thing? God's version is like, why would a saint like you sin so bad? I just learned to love the way God loves. And why? Because God's about God. Religion's about religion. Principles are about principles. Others are about others. Touching on the others about others really quick. So there was a group of businessmen, and I promise you, with 99% of certainty, if you asked them, why are you working so hard to make your business so successful, they would have said, got to take care of my family. Now, why would they say that? Because it's actually true, or because that's just what you learn to say? Because it always sounds good. The people are going to say, well, I'm working so hard because I want money and I don't care if I lose my wife and my kids in the process. None of them would say that. They say it's for their wife and their kids. But in this particular mastermind group of 10 businessmen, every single one of them lost their wife and lost their kids. Every single one. The last of them was getting divorced the first time I was consulted by a member of this mastermind. And the guy I talked to said, like, you know, I wish we had found you earlier. You could have helped us have some balance. And that really, they didn't even need balance. All they needed to do is put your wife and put your kids on your list of priorities. Don't just pay lip service to you're mistreating your wife and you're mistreating your kids and you're being absent from your family for your family somehow. Make your family a priority. They forgot to make others about others. They were using others as a justification for self because they wanted this success. It meant something to them about them. And they forgot, if you're going to pay lip service to this is for others, make it really honestly about others and include those others in it. Hanshi self-submission. This is that state of being, the master of being level self-submission. Clean the deceitful heart. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Psalm 51:10. But note also Jeremiah 17:9. This is part of why you don't just want this blanket statement of follow your heart, because you don't know what's in someone's heart. Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is more deceitful than all else, and is desperately sick. Who can understand it? Because a lot of times, the autopilot that is buried in our heart drives us in really bad directions. A lot of times the autopilot buried in our heart is very self-protective, defensive, reactive, but then tries to trick us into thinking that all this is a good thing. So pre-conscious preparation. The pre-conscious is that which you can easily think of, and it's just learn the stuff and put it in the pre-conscious so that you can recall it, whenever you need to recall it, to put into action. Subconscious, a little harder. Subconscious cleaning means when you find those autopilots that are doing you harm, when you find those autopilots that are anti-God, anti-religion, anti-principles, anti-others, even anti-yourself, your highest and best self, that are damaging, destructive, toxic, in any way poisoning your life, you clean that stuff out. And the whole 5-step forgiveness system is a powerful system to do that. And the Triple E Freedom Technique is a powerful system to be in the world but not of the world. Don't let the bad stuff of the world get in you and control you and dominate you. To exercise the complete freedom you get when you truly learn to forgive others and forgive yourself. And that's part of subconscious cleaning, getting rid of those subconsciously driven programs based upon some bad history and some bad habits, and have that Hanshi level clean heart. And then deep dark searching. You won't find the stuff in the deep dark with casual thought. But whenever stuff is bubbling up and you don't know why it's there or what it's there, you search that out. And that's also related to those whole systems. It's way beyond what I can preach about right now. So the goal here, though, is to put everything on autopilot. Put all things on autopilot. At the God level, we have Christ strengthens me. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things. There's all kinds of things. It's not every single thing there is. But there's all kinds of things. There's no kind of thing that is exempt from the ability to be done through Christ's strength. And by leaning on God and the strength of Christ, the love that he gives to us, the love exemplified by his sacrifice on the cross and his offer to us of salvation, meaning that we can come to him and he is worthy and true to forgive us our sins if we will confess our sins. And we can pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and give it another go, and that we can serve the God who is love, who exemplified that love by laying down his suke, by becoming who we needed him to be, and by leading and teaching us and showing us how to be more like him. And he became more like us to be able to do that. So the goal is put all things on autopilot. Let God be God. And lean on him so you can do all things through his strength, through his love. And the religion, to live out the fruit of the Spirit. That we self-submit to religion, autopiloting the fruit of the Spirit, autopiloting love, autopiloting joy, autopiloting peace. Love, joy, and peace combined I call bliss. Autopiloting patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. Galatians 5:22 and 23, if you want to go hunt down that list. Galatians chapter 5:22 and 23. At principles, all principles consistently applied. Anytime you notice a mismatch between stated principles and your own actions, that's time to go search that out and put the proper principles on autopilot. Others. Couple of things on others. Love others as I love God. On autopilot. To automatically love other people the way I should be loving God. 1 John 4:20b. The one who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen. And so there's this combination. I love God. And I rely on God's love to me. My loving God is just reciprocating the love he gives to me. And I'm to love other people in like manner. 1 John 4:20. And love others as I love myself. So that means I need to also be loving myself in the same way I love others. So there should be reciprocity here too. So I need to love others as I love God. I need to be loving others as I love myself. The way I love God, the way I love others, the way I love myself. All should match in harmony. So this love your neighbor as yourself. I'm going to give you a list here. So Jesus said that in Matthew 19:19. He said that in Mark 12:31. He said that in Luke 10:27. So 3 of the 4 Gospels cite his answer to this guy. What is the greatest of all commandments? Jesus says, number 1, love God. Number 2, love your neighbor as yourself. And went so far as to say the second is like the first. I can't give you the answer to number 1 without including number 2, because it is such a close second. It is so intertwined with number 1. You can't even do number 1 if you're not doing number 2. And just in case you're wondering if God means it, remember, we're talking about the Bible is the Word of God. Our interpretation of the Bible is not the Word of God, but the Bible is the Word of God. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. We find that in Leviticus 19:18. We find that in Matthew 19:19. We find that again in Matthew 22:39. We find that in Mark 12:31. We find that in Luke 10:27. We find it in Romans 13:9. We find it in Galatians 5:14. And we find it in James chapter 2, verse 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. 7 times in the New Testament, and it comes from the Old Testament. Old Testament God is often seen as the wrath of God. Kind of the judgmental, wrathful God. This judgmental, wrathful God said, love your neighbor as yourself. Take care of the stranger in your land. You will not mistreat the stranger in your land. You will love your neighbor as yourself. And 7 times in the New Testament. 4 times in the Gospels, 3 times in the Epistles. Does that kind of sound like this love others as I love myself thing kind of might be important? Put it on autopilot. And the converse, to love yourself the way you love others. and to use whichever standard works best for you to understand love. The love of God, your love from God. Your love of people, the love you wish to receive from people. Your love of yourself, the love you ought to have for yourself as a healthy self-love. Wherever you understand the principle, that applies to the other ones. Autopilot your will. Maximize permanent until change decisions. That means you decide, and the decision's the decision, unless, rule on rules, there's a good reason to do otherwise. And when it comes to a decision, the good reason to do otherwise is there's new, previously unknown information of such magnitude that it mandates revisiting the decision. So, autopiloting your will means you maximize your permanent until changed decisions. You decide, and that's the decision, unless and until there's a good enough reason to change the decision. But you commit to your decision. Autopilot your mind. Be a lifetime learner. Autopilot your decision to continue to learn, to continue to grow, to continue to read books and listen to audios and watch instructional videos and take classes and go to seminars and get coaching and counseling and mentoring. Whatever it is, be doing stuff that results in your ongoing growth. Mind, habitually apply creativity to your values, that which you truly value. So for me, I say, one of my top values is love. All right, well, how well do I do? I'm creatively looking for ways to be loving. How well do I do at bringing my creativity to my high value of joy? How do I do at bringing my creativity to my high value of peace? And emotions, have a great attitude. Autopilot a great attitude. Well, your idea is to be happy for no reason. Emotions, follow the language of emotions path. Positive emotions are emotions of duplication. Search that out. Duplicate what you did that resulted in the best emotions for the best reasons. Negative emotions are emotions of change. Practice making the necessary changes. Look at your self-protection reactions and make the necessary core shifts in yourself you need so your self-protection reactions are actually helpful to you. And then make your proper responses to your negative emotional states, and that will help drive a tremendous amount of growth. In actions, what you say and what you do are the same. On autopilot, you automatically do that. That you automatically watch your words and you automatically commit to the words that you utter, and you automatically take back the words that you uttered that you realize you shouldn't have said, preferably as close to when you said it as possible. You want to know when it's the easiest to get my forgiveness and restoration simultaneously for uttering heinous words? And that would be if you said something out loud, and the example I used earlier of the woman who made this horrific accusation. Could it have happened? Didn't happen? There was no possible way it happened, and yet she was still willing to make the accusation. How much more if it did? But if she had said it in anger, and as soon as she said it, she went, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I totally don't mean that. I was just so mad. That was so wrong of me. Oh my God. I totally take that back. I so don't mean that. Now, with that kind of reaction, could that be let go? That could probably be let go pretty easily. Now, there's still this realization, okay, when you get mad enough, you're willing to go there. But if you try to take it back, like as it utters out, and you wish you could just suck those words right back, that is the best time to catch that. And the closer to the moment of uttering them you can seek forgiveness for them, the much more likely you can take those words back and be more quickly restored. So what you say and what you do are the same. Rule on rules applies. But what you say and what you do are the same. You keep your commitments to yourself. And then senses. Now this is an important thing that I really don't have time to unpack, but I want to touch on it. Leverage your reticular activating system. Leverage your reticular activating system. The RAS notices what you have told it is important by how you manifest your values, how you manifest your principles, and is driven by your mind and your emotions. So, on the negative side, well, let's start with the positive side. If I'm deciding to buy a car, and right now I'm looking at cars, and if I decide, in my particular case, I have a particular blue sedan in mind, and guess what happens? Because I'm thinking about this car, and I'm thinking about choosing this car, the reticular activating system goes to work and says, oh, those kind of cars are important, and guess what? Every time one shows up in my field of view, I notice it now. Because my reticular activating system has been told that particular car is important, and it automatically autopilots to noticing that particular car whenever one passes in front of my field of view. When a blue sedan that might not even be that kind of car passes my field of view, my reticular activating system clicks up and says, hey, is that one? And it may not be one, but I look at it, my mind will look at the relevant pieces and go, oh, nope, that's not one of them. But because I've chosen the color and I've chosen the body type, the reticular activating system goes to work on that. Now, on the negative side, suppose I'm a really judgmental person. That means I've told my reticular activating system that judging people is important. And what that means is I'm going to notice every opportunity to be judgmental. I'm going to see the things I need to see to support this important activity of judging people. I'm going to hear all the things that I need to hear that could help me be judgmental of people. I'm going to feel the feelings that would help me amplify being judgmental of people. I'm going to taste the tastes when I'm eating food. If I want to be judgmental over the food, I'm going to notice the tastes that will allow me to be judgmental of the cook and be all superior about the food. I'm going to smell the smells that will let me be judgmental and self-aggrandizing about even things that I smell. All my senses go to work in service to that which I have told my senses is important. And it will autopilot that. So if on the flip side, I have this high value of love, then my reticular activating system goes to work in service to love. It goes to work in service to, how can I be loving? Oh, I see a thing, and that reminds me of this other person. Like I have one young lady, she's a big Hello Kitty girl. And every time I see Hello Kitty stuff, I think of her because my brain has that reticular activating system that notices, oh, Hello Kitty, that would be a way to be loving to her. Oh, a green heart, that would be my way to be loving to her. Like, oh, I see this other thing. Oh, I know this other person who loves those kind of things. Because my reticular activating system goes to work on that. When I hear a song that I think is particularly appropriate to someone, I'll go find it online and I'll send links out. Because my reticular activating system is pre-programmed for love. Because that's my highest value. So you leverage your reticular activating system by what you tell it is important. It doesn't mean you ignore all the other stuff. It's not like when I'm thinking about this blue sedan, I only see blue sedans. I still see all the other cars. They all pass in my field of view. I still respond to the cars as I always have, and, not crashing into them, avoiding knowing that they're coming, all the normal traffic stuff. But the reticular activating system pays particular attention to that which you tell it is important. So you want to autopilot your RAS. You want to autopilot your RAS to its attitude. So it's noticing stuff for a particular reason. So if my focus is on sexual attraction to women, I will notice women that meet my criteria for sexual attractiveness. If I'm focused on buying this particular car, I will tend to notice the cars that match the criteria I'm looking for to buy. If I'm grounded in joy, My RAS goes to work looking and noticing and bringing to my attention all those things that could bring me joy. It autopilots the interpretation of the thing. So something I could look outside and I see this interesting tree. Well, it's just a tree. But because my RAS is predisposed to look for things that bring me joy, I might start to notice, well, that's an interesting pattern of leaves. That's a really intricate kind of really artistic balance of the turn and twist of the branches. How interesting, how beautiful, what a wonderful piece of God's art. Because my reticular activating system is programmed by joy. And then your body chooses where to be physically. That you autopilot getting your physical body to the places it needs to be in fulfillment of your highest values. And in your body, you manifest who you are in your physical body. Your physical body starts with its potential range of function and appearance, and you manifest whatever it becomes within that range by your external and internal habits. You decide what you want to look like. You decide if you want short hair or long hair. You decide, what clothes to put on your body. You decide what food goes into your body. All these are choices that we make that affect our physical body. We decide what particular exercise, if any exercise, we do. But in particular, a lot of disease, a lot of challenges we run into in our body has to do with what we autopilot coming down to the physical level. If you're an angry enough person, you can give yourself all these problems. Where you have someone who has heart disease and they're having a massive tantrum and they die of a heart attack. Or someone's internalized all of this stress and it gives them ulcers. And so your physical body will manifest. And so you're looking to manifest who you are on autopilot to be who you choose to be. So for autopilot, if you self-lead and you self-submit, you're done. Self-leadership and self-submission, your autopilot is done. Let's look at the self-leadership and the self-submission. Give rest. Does your self-leadership give rest and allow you to self-submit? Does your self-leadership get you taught, trained, things explained to you? Is it gentle? Is it humble? Is it easy? Is it simple? Does it burden you lightly? And the more you self-submit to these things, you submit to your rest time. You submit to the lessons that you learn and this habit of being taught, this habit of being trained, this habit of getting explanations for things, this habit of gentleness, this habit of humility, this habit of easy, this habit of simple, this habit of burdening yourself lightly and then following through on your stuff so it's done. Being fully integrated also lets you submit to others wisely and well, and ask for submission with integrity. Being fully integrated, the more people see that you really are the real deal, the more people see that that which you present publicly matches that which you are privately, matches that which you are behind closed doors. That which they find in the darkness does not conflict with that which they see in the light. When you submit to yourself well, it lets you submit to others also wisely and also well. That it allows you to recognize good leadership. So when it comes time to be in submission to somebody else, you just submit. Because you recognize good leadership. And the whole thing about disobeying or delaying, disobeying, belaying, countermanding, removing leaders from leadership, partially, temporarily, permanently, all of that applies. That's part of the job of the submitted. And that you know when to do that job with others because you do that job with yourself. That's the rule on rules. And it also lets you submit to others in a healthy way because you self-submit in a healthy way. All you have to do is just let it out and use the exact same rules with other people you use with yourself. And it allows you to ask for submission with integrity. So when you are asking someone to submit to you because now you're in leadership, it allows you to do so with integrity. So you're not asking for something that you don't do. You're not asking for something you don't do for yourself. You're not asking for something you don't have the model of how you do it with God, how you do it with the authorities in your life. Being fully integrated lets you recognize and ask for good leadership. It lets you recognize and ask for good leadership with integrity. Because when you're in charge, that's how you lead. And with yourself, that's how you lead yourself. And your own model for healthy leadership is how you lead you. And it also lets you lead others wisely and well, because all you have to do is let the leadership that you give yourself out to others. If you lead yourself wisely and well, you can lead others wisely and well. And then when you ask for the submission to your leadership, the leadership you do with you becomes the model for the leadership you give to others. The submission you do with you becomes your own integrity when you're asking for submission to your leadership. Because the same principles apply inside and outside. The rules that come to you match the rules that come from you. The principles which you espouse are the principles by which you live. The leadership you ask for is the leadership that you give. The submission that you ask for is the submission that you give. Total integration inside and out, because you've autopiloted the whole thing. And the more you successfully autopilot the whole thing, the easier all of it becomes. Then the hard parts of life are the takeoffs and the landings. So you can't autopilot, at least not yet, the takeoff, and you can't autopilot yet the landing. The pilots have to do that. But for most of the flight, you can put on the autopilot, and it'll kind of keep you generally on course, because a lot of the stuff is pre-programmed in there. And you autopilot with good self-leadership, you autopilot with good self-submission, and the self-leadership and the self-submission need to be blended together in a wise way, done well, with proper love and all of that, as Christ modeled for us. And we're autopiloting all of this. We are becoming this person. And keeping in mind, of course, at all times, the rule on rules applies. If there's a good enough reason to make an adjustment, you make an adjustment. You might be running the autopilot, and then there's some news that tells you, okay, we need to go around the thing. Well, then you just take manual control and you go around the thing. And then when you're now on a different course than you were before, now you're not here, now you're over there, then you reprogram the autopilot for its new course. You reprogram the autopilot. Okay, now we're not over where we were, now we're over where we are, so now we need to chart a new course, and once we have a new course, now that's our course, decisions made, we already know what we're aiming for. And then sometimes, on autopilot, the destination needs to change, because you find out, that there's a storm at your destination airport, or it's fogged in, you won't be able to land, and you have to change where you're going, and then you take the manual control, you make all the decisions you need to make, you program in the new autopilot for the new destination, so now you have a new goal, and you head there instead. But in all of this, it's all integrity. Through self-submission, quality self-leadership, quality self-submission, and then you just get to be that person. And when you get to be that person, you get to live a much more relaxed life. Because the more all the key things in your world have been autopiloted, the more you've cooperated with God in creating in you a clean heart, the more you cooperated with God in renewing a right spirit, the more you've willingly laid down your suke to those things which you have chosen to have in your life, the more you walk in integrity, the more you walk in submission to your highest and best selves, to your highest and best choices, to the truth of the Spirit, to the truth of God, the easier your life becomes. And then you only have to struggle with new takeoffs, new landings, and deciding where to go next. And you get to live a life of optimal integrity. And you get to live this life of optimal integrity through self-submission, through self-leadership, and you get to just be that person. And I will tell you, I'm not going to lie and say like, oh, well, it's easy. All you have to do is poof, and you're done. It's not that easy. It's a process. But it is a worthy process. Now, I will tell you, for those of us who are older, for those of us who are in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, a lot of us look back at our teens and 20s and 30s and go, oh man, if only I had made different decisions back then. This could be done by now. Heck, some of us are going, heck, if I had made this different decision a year ago, I could be done by now. So a lot of that goes down to an old proverb. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. The best time to get started on this is when you're young. The best time to get started on this is so long ago that you'd be done by now. Second best time to get started on this is now. To walk the path. And as you walk the path, to consider how you're going to show others the way. To lean on Christ. To draw on His strength. And to do the things in line with the beautiful, magnificent, wonderful engineering of the universe and our psyche and our soul, our spirit, our hearts. To be able to align and agree with God. And just say, you know, I think God might know what He's doing. Maybe I just need to line up with Him a little bit better. And I can optimize my integrity from right here, right now, making it ever better as I move forward. Even if this is brand new to me and I'm a white belt. White belt, brand new beginner. And I need to work my way up to black belt, work my way up to mastery. Even if it takes months, even if it takes years, even if it takes decades. So I always have forward movement because now I have a compass heading. And you get to decide. The choice is yours. Can you lead you? Can you submit to you? And what would it take for you to be able to do that? To live the life, to be the person that you wish you could be. And to do it in honor of what God made possible for you and to be the person God created you to be. And to be in this world with your gift. To be in this world with your voice. And to make the difference God put you here to make.